The story of King Tutankhamun, known affectionately as King Tut, is one of the most famous tales in ancient Egyptian history. His name has become synonymous with the wonder and mystery of Egypt's past, a young pharaoh whose legacy, though brief, would endure forever. But Tutankhamun's story begins not in the grandeur of a lifetime of triumphs, but rather in a tomb, his tomb, hidden deep within the Valley of the Kings. The tale of how the world came to know of this tomb is itself a moment of great historical significance. It is a story of discovery, of perseverance, and of the unlocking of a forgotten world, a world sealed off by time for more than 3,000 years. King Tut's life, though short and relatively unremarkable in terms of accomplishments, was surrounded by an aura of mystery. He ascended to the throne at the tender age of 9, after the death of his father, the heretic pharaoh Akhenaten. Akhenaten's reign had marked a significant departure from traditional Egyptian beliefs, introducing the worship of a single god, the sun disk Aten, instead of the many gods worshipped in Egypt. Upon Akhenaten's death, the political and religious landscape of Egypt was tumultuous, with the country torn between followers of the old gods and those loyal to the Aten. King Tutankhamun, being a child, was guided by advisors who made efforts to restore the old ways, returning Egypt to its polytheistic traditions. However, Tutankhamun's reign lasted only 10 years, and at the age of around 18, he died suddenly, leaving behind no direct heirs. The cause of his death has long been debated, with theories ranging from a sudden illness, an accident, to the possibility of murder. But despite the uncertainty surrounding his death, one thing remained indisputable. His tomb, hidden and untouched for millennia, was about to be discovered. The year was 1922, and the world of archaeology was alive with anticipation. The Valley of the Kings, located on the west bank of the Nile River, had long been the final resting place of Egypt's greatest pharaohs. Over the years, tombs have been looted, plundered, and forgotten, but one tomb remained elusive, undisturbed, waiting for the right moment to reveal its secrets. That moment came when a British archaeologist named Howard Carter, after years of painstaking work and with the backing of his wealthy sponsor, Lord Carnarvon, finally made the breakthrough that would change history forever. Carter, a man known for his meticulous and patient approach to archaeology, had been searching the valley for several years. Many of his peers had written off the area as exhausted, with no further significant finds to be made. But Carter was determined. In November of 1922, after years of digging and unearthing smaller tombs, he discovered a set of steps leading down into the earth. These steps, though covered in debris, marked the entrance to what would become the most famous archaeological discovery of the 20th century. When Carter and his team made their first glimpse into the tomb, they were not prepared for what they were about to uncover. Behind the sealed door was an intact tomb that had somehow escaped the notice of grave robbers and the ravages of time. As they slowly opened the tomb, the world was about to witness a treasure trove of unimaginable wealth and wonder. The treasures within the tomb would not only shed light on the life of the young pharaoh, but also offer a rare and pristine glimpse into the opulence of ancient Egypt. The discovery of King Tut's tomb was nothing short of miraculous. The tomb had remained sealed, untouched, for over 3,000 years. Unlike many other royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings, which had been looted and plundered by thieves over the centuries, King Tut's burial place had preserved its treasures in near-perfect condition. Inside the tomb, Carter and his team uncovered a vast array of objects, statues, jewelry, weapons, furniture, and of course, the centerpiece of the tomb, the golden mask of King Tutankhamun. The mask itself, now one of the most recognizable symbols of ancient Egypt, was an awe-inspiring sight. Made of gold and inlaid with precious stones, the mask depicted the pharaoh's youthful face with exquisite detail. The smooth, serene expression on the mask's face was haunting, evoking a sense of both peace and mystery. It was as if King Tut's very soul was preserved within this object, a piece of him that would transcend time and space. The golden mask was only the beginning. As Carter and his team carefully documented and cataloged the treasures found within the tomb, the world watched in awe. King Tut's tomb contained more than 5,000 items, many of which were beyond anything ever seen before. It was a treasure chest that revealed the splendor and artistry of ancient Egypt at its peak. There were chariots, shields, bow and arrows, and finely crafted furniture, all designed to accompany the young king into the afterlife. The sheer richness of the tomb, with its array of artifacts, offered an unparalleled glimpse into the grandeur of ancient Egyptian royal life. Yet, as the world marveled at the discovery, there was also a sense of unease. The notion of the curse of the pharaohs, a superstition suggesting that those who disturbed the tombs of ancient Egyptian kings would suffer dire consequences, began to circulate. The death of Lord Carnarvon, Carter's sponsor, shortly after the tomb's opening, fueled these rumors. His passing, along with the deaths of several others associated with the tomb's excavation, led to a flurry of speculation that the tomb was cursed, though many historians today dismiss this as mere coincidence. Regardless of the myth or fact, the discovery of King Tut's tomb and the mask that accompanied him has left an indelible mark on history. For Carter, the discovery was a culmination of years of dedication and hard work. It was the crowning achievement of a career spent searching for answers in the sands of Egypt. Yet, even as Carter stood amidst the treasures of the tomb, he could not have known just how far-reaching the impact of this discovery would be. The world was fascinated by ancient Egypt, and King Tut's golden mask became an international symbol of the allure and mystery of the ancient world. This discovery not only sparked a wave of interest in Egyptology, but also fundamentally changed how we understand the ancient past. It provided new insights into Egyptian art, religion, and daily life, as well as the practices surrounding death and the afterlife. But more than that, it captured the imagination of people all over the world, drawing them into the mystery of ancient Egypt, a civilization whose grandeur and mysticism continue to fascinate us today. In the end, King Tutankhamun's legacy is not defined by the length of his reign or the great achievements of his life, but by the treasures he left behind, treasures that have told us more about the ancient world than any written record could. The golden mask, his tomb, and the artifacts within it continue to speak to us from across the ages, reminding us of a time long past, yet forever present in our collective memory. And in the quiet of the night, as we reflect on the mysteries of ancient Egypt, we can still feel the pull of the golden mask, inviting us to step into a world of wonders, secrets, and eternal stories. The golden mask of King Tutankhamun is one of the most iconic and instantly recognizable artifacts ever discovered. When you gaze upon it, you are not merely looking at a piece of ancient Egyptian art. You are witnessing a symbol of eternity, a representation of the divine, and a gateway into the beliefs that govern the life and afterlife of an ancient pharaoh. This exquisite mask, crafted from gold and inlaid with precious stones, was not just a funerary object, but also a testament to the profound significance of death and the afterlife in Egyptian culture. Its beauty is almost transcendent, a testament to the artistry and spiritual depth of the ancient Egyptians. King Tutankhamun's golden mask was created to serve as a part of his burial ensemble, ensuring that his likeness would be preserved for eternity. But it was not just about preserving his physical form. The mask was meant to protect and immortalize the young king's spirit, allowing him to transcend the limits of his earthly existence and move into the afterlife. The ancient Egyptians believed that death was merely a transition, and the physical body had to be preserved so the soul could continue its journey. In this context, the golden mask was not just a funerary object, but a sacred tool designed to safeguard the soul of the king and ensure his continued existence beyond the physical realm. Made of solid gold, the mask weighs approximately 11 kilograms, 24 pounds, making it both a heavy and significant object. The mask's design is meticulously detailed, showcasing the skill of the ancient craftsmen who produced it. The face of the mask is serene and tranquil, with the features of a young pharaoh perfectly captured in a way that is both realistic and idealized. King Tut's features are stylized to evoke both his youth and the timelessness of the divine. His face is framed by a headdress that mimics the cobra and vulture, symbols of Upper and Lower Egypt. The cobra represents the goddess Wadjet, protector of the kingdom, while the vulture represents Nekhbet, the goddess of the south. These elements are symbolic, reinforcing the king's divine rule and his connection to the gods. The eyes of the mask are crafted from inlaid glass, giving them an almost lifelike quality. They gleam with an intense and peaceful gaze, as if the king himself is looking back at you. The pupils are formed from black stones, which add a depth and sharpness to his expression. The face is framed by a broad collar that is decorated with colored stones, including lapis lazuli, turquoise, and carnelian, which add a vivid contrast to the gold. These materials were not chosen haphazardly. Each one had a specific meaning and association with the gods, the afterlife, and the protection of the pharaoh. Gold, of course, was associated with the sun, immortality, and the gods themselves, making it the perfect material to represent a king who was both a divine ruler and a living god on earth. In addition to its religious and symbolic importance, the golden mask also served a very practical purpose. The ancient Egyptians believed in the concept of Ka, a spirit or life force that remained with the body after death. The Ka was thought to need a physical form to inhabit in the afterlife. The mask, in this sense, was a physical representation of King Tut's Ka, preserving his identity so that his soul could recognize itself in the afterlife and continue its journey in peace. It acted as a vessel for his spirit, ensuring that the king would remain recognizable and intact even as he passed from the world of the living to the world of the dead. The craftsmanship of the golden mask is an achievement in itself. The level of detail and care that went into its creation speaks to the immense skill of the ancient Egyptian artisans who worked on it. The mask is made of gold sheets, which were skillfully hammered and shaped. In some areas, the gold was thin enough to be translucent, allowing light to pass through and creating a glow that seems to emanate from the very heart of the mask. The inclusion of semi-precious stones and colored glass further elevates the mask's visual impact. These materials were not only valuable, but were believed to have spiritual significance. Lapis lazuli, for instance, was associated with the heavens and the divine, while turquoise was thought to have protective properties. The mask also includes a false beard, a distinctive feature of the pharaohs, symbolizing the divine nature of the king's rule. The false beard, which is attached to the mask's chin, is made of gold and is a typical feature in the burial masks of pharaohs. In Egyptian culture, the false beard was a symbol of the king's authority and his connection to the gods. It also represented the pharaoh's role as the intermediary between the gods and the people, a living god whose power transcended the mortal realm. The beard itself is a masterpiece, with each strand crafted to resemble a natural flow, giving it a lifelike appearance. This detail was intended to reinforce the idea that the pharaoh, even in death, retained his power and authority. The mask's serene expression also speaks to the Egyptian belief in the afterlife. Death was not seen as an end, but rather as a continuation of life in another form. The king's mask was not just a way to preserve his physical appearance, but also to ensure that his soul could live on in peace and power. The mask's calm and composed features represent the tranquility that the king would experience in the afterlife. It is as if the mask is saying that even in death, the pharaoh will remain peaceful, untouched by the turmoil and decay of the world around him. This is a powerful concept in ancient Egyptian religion, where death was seen as a natural and necessary part of the eternal cycle of life. The golden mask also reflects the importance of ritual and symbolism in ancient Egyptian society. Everything about the mask, from its materials to its design, was imbued with spiritual meaning. The mask was not just an object of beauty. It was a sacred item that played a vital role in ensuring the king's smooth transition to the afterlife. The elaborate details of the mask, from the headdress to the collar to the intricate inlays, were all designed to symbolize various aspects of the king's divine nature and his eternal rule. The golden mask of King Tutankhamun is, in many ways, the epitome of what the ancient Egyptians sought to achieve through their burial practices. It is an object that transcends time, an object that embodies both the beauty and the spirituality of the ancient world. It speaks to us from a time long past, offering us a glimpse into the beliefs, rituals, and artistry of a civilization that still captivates us today. The mask is not just a piece of jewelry or decoration. It is a window into the heart of ancient Egyptian culture, a symbol of immortality, divine rule, and the eternal journey of the soul. As we continue to study and marvel at the golden mask, we are reminded of the profound connection between art, religion, and the afterlife in ancient Egypt. The mask is a symbol of the pharaoh's power, the protection of his spirit, and the promise of eternal life. It is an enduring legacy that allows us to glimpse the grandeur of an ancient civilization and the deep spiritual beliefs that shaped its people. Through the golden mask of King Tut, the past is never truly gone. It lives on, immortalized in gold, and forever etched into the annals of history. The ancient Egyptians are renowned for their profound and meticulous approach to death and the afterlife. To the Egyptians, death was not an end, but a transition, a step into a new existence. Their beliefs and practices surrounding death permeated all aspects of life, and it was through the complex rituals of burial and the preservation of the body that they sought to ensure a safe passage to the afterlife. The culture of death in ancient Egypt, particularly through their burial practices, was deeply intertwined with their religion, their understanding of the cosmos, and their view of the afterlife. These practices evolved over thousands of years, becoming increasingly elaborate, but their underlying purpose remained constant: to ensure immortality and divine protection for the deceased. At the heart of Egyptian burial practices was the concept of the Ka and the Ba, two essential aspects of a person's spirit. The Ka was seen as the life force or double of the individual, existing both in the body and after death. The Ba, on the other hand, was associated with a person's unique personality and was free to travel between the physical world and the afterlife. These two elements of the soul were believed to need a preserved body to continue their existence after death. Thus, proper burial and mummification were essential to ensuring that the deceased could live on in the afterlife. From the earliest periods of Egyptian history, burial practices were designed to protect the body and its spirit, helping it to continue its journey into the afterlife. The practice of mummification, which involved embalming the body and wrapping it in linen, became the cornerstone of these burial rites. The ancient Egyptians believed that the preservation of the body was necessary for the soul to recognize itself in the afterlife, as the body would continue to serve as a home for the Ka and Ba. Initially, mummification was reserved for the elite, the pharaohs, and high-ranking officials. These individuals could afford the costly and time-consuming process of embalming, which involved removing the internal organs, drying the body with natron, a type of salt, and wrapping the corpse in layers of linen. The organs, which were thought to be necessary for the individual's functioning in the afterlife, were carefully preserved separately in jars. These mummified bodies were then placed in elaborate tombs, often inside pyramids or rock-cut tombs in the Valley of the Kings. These tombs were not merely burial sites. They were designed to be houses for the deceased in the afterlife, complete with everything the individual might need for eternity. The burial practices of the pharaohs, in particular, were spectacular in their grandeur. These rulers were not just monarchs of Egypt in their time. They were considered divine beings, living gods on earth, and as such, their death was seen as the transition of a god from one realm to another. The pharaohs were believed to become one with Osiris, the god of the dead and resurrection, and their tombs were filled with treasures, amulets, food, drink, and other items believed to be needed for sustenance in the afterlife. The idea was that the tomb would serve as a self-sustaining abode for the deceased, protecting them from dangers and ensuring their comfort in the next life. As time passed, the practice of mummification spread to include not only the royals, but but also the wealthy and influential citizens of Egypt. Those who could not afford the elaborate tombs of the pharaohs still sought to secure their place in the afterlife. These tombs were smaller, but they often contained items that were still considered essential, such as food offerings, jewelry, and magical texts. The Book of the Dead, a collection of spells and prayers, was placed in the tomb to guide the deceased through the dangers of the afterlife and to ensure their safe passage to the realm of Osiris. By the time of the New Kingdom, circa 1550 to 1070 BCE, burial practices had become highly elaborate and varied. The tombs of the pharaohs were no longer just simple burial chambers, but grand, complex structures designed to replicate a royal palace in the afterlife. These tombs were filled with murals and inscriptions, depicting scenes of the deceased in the afterlife, surrounded by gods and offering ceremonies. The tombs were often situated in remote desert valleys, in order to protect the body and its treasures from tomb robbers who had long plagued Egyptian burial sites. One of the most famous burial sites from the New Kingdom is the Valley of the Kings, where the tombs of Egypt's most famous pharaohs, including Tutankhamun, Ramses II, and Seti I, were carved into the cliffs. These tombs were designed with elaborate passageways, chambers, and false doors, all intended to protect the deceased and ensure that their spirit could safely pass into the afterlife. The tombs in the Valley of the Kings were not just physical spaces. They were believed to be portals to the world of the gods. The tombs of these pharaohs were filled with intricate objects meant to accompany them into the afterlife. In addition to furniture, jewelry, and weapons, the tombs contained symbolic items that were meant to protect the pharaoh's soul on its journey. These items included statues of gods, painted coffins, and even models of servants and animals. The idea was that the king would need these items to maintain his divinity and power in the afterlife. The burial practices of the pharaohs were not only for the pharaohs themselves, but also for their families and closest servants. High-ranking officials, priests, and nobles were also buried with great care, their tombs often located in the same valleys. These tombs contained many of the same elements as the pharaoh's tomb, albeit on a smaller scale. The grave goods of these individuals were often more personal, reflecting the deceased's role in life and their relationships with the gods. Throughout Egyptian history, the elaborate burial practices and rituals continued to evolve, with each new dynasty adding its own unique touches to the traditions. But regardless of the period, the goal remained the same: to ensure the safe journey of the deceased into the afterlife. The tomb, the mummified body, the offerings, and the rituals all worked together to ensure that the deceased would be protected from evil forces and would enjoy an eternal life in the company of the gods. The final moments of the funeral were marked by a solemn procession, during which the body would be transported to the tomb. The body was often placed in a sarcophagus, a large stone coffin, and was accompanied by family members, priests, and mourners. During the procession, mourners would chant prayers and offerings would be made to the gods, asking for the deceased's safe passage into the afterlife. Once the tomb was sealed, the deceased's soul was believed to begin its journey, guided by the prayers and rituals of the living. For the common people, however, burial practices were often simpler and more focused on the essential elements needed for survival in the afterlife. While the wealthy and powerful could afford grand tombs and elaborate rituals, the poorer classes relied on simpler burials. These individuals might be buried in shallow graves or in smaller tombs, with only a few basic offerings to see them through the afterlife. Despite these differences, the core belief remained the same: that death was merely a transition to another life, and that proper rituals and offerings would ensure a safe passage. By the time of the Ptolemaic period, 332 to 30 BCE, Egyptian burial practices had been influenced by foreign cultures, but the fundamental belief in the afterlife remained unchanged. The Egyptians continued to bury their dead with care, ensuring that they would be protected on their journey to the afterlife, and the desire for immortality remained central to their spiritual worldview. The legacy of these burial practices can still be seen today. The tombs of the pharaohs, with their stunning architecture intricate artwork, and rich treasures continue to captivate and inspire people around the world. The discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 revealed just how deeply embedded these beliefs and practices were in the culture of ancient Egypt. Through the careful study of ancient tombs and burial sites, we have come to understand not only the ancient Egyptians' beliefs about death, but also their incredible artistry, their devotion to their gods, and their desire for eternity. In the quiet stillness of the tombs, beneath the weight of millennia, the ancient Egyptians continue to speak to us. Through their burial practices, they left us a legacy not just of treasures and artifacts, but of their enduring belief in the afterlife and their eternal quest for immortality. These practices were more than rituals. They were the very foundation of their worldview, a worldview that transcends time and continues to resonate with us, even thousands of years later. Gold has held a special significance throughout human history, but no culture revered it quite like the ancient Egyptians. In their eyes, gold was not merely a precious metal. It was the embodiment of the divine, a physical manifestation of the gods and the eternal nature of the universe. The Egyptians believed that gold had a unique power, one that connected them to the divine realm and ensured the immortality of the soul. It was the material most closely associated with the sun god Ra, whose golden rays brought life to the earth. For the Egyptians, gold was the material of the gods, and its presence in their tombs, jewelry, and sacred artifacts was both a symbol of divine favor and a means to ensure eternal life in the afterlife. From the earliest periods of Egyptian history, gold was used extensively in both secular and religious contexts. It adorned the crowns of kings and queens, the statues of gods, and the walls of temples. It was a symbol of power and immortality, a mark of wealth and divine favor. But gold's true significance went beyond its beauty or rarity. It was the material that represented the eternal nature of the gods and the afterlife, two concepts that were central to Egyptian religion and culture. One of the most significant associations of gold in ancient Egypt was with the sun god Ra. Ra was considered the creator of all life, and he was believed to travel across the sky each day in his golden bark, a symbolic boat, bringing light and warmth to the world. In Egyptian cosmology, the sun was a symbol of life, rebirth, and immortality, and gold, with its radiant and unchanging quality, was thought to embody the very essence of the sun's eternal power. It was for this reason that the pharaohs, who were considered the living embodiment of Ra on earth, were often depicted wearing gold crowns and jewelry, emphasizing their divine right to rule and their connection to the gods. Gold was also believed to have protective qualities, particularly when used in funerary contexts. In the tombs of the pharaohs, gold was used to create objects designed to safeguard the soul of the deceased. Statues of gods, amulets, and even the pharaoh's burial mask were made of gold or adorned with gold inlays, all intended to offer protection and to ensure that the deceased would be safe in the afterlife. The idea was that the gold would act as a shield, warding off evil spirits and ensuring that the soul could reach its eternal resting place without interference from malevolent forces. In the case of King Tutankhamun, gold played a central role in his burial. The discovery of his tomb in 1922 revealed a stunning array of gold artifacts, including the famous golden burial mask, which has become one of the most iconic symbols of ancient Egypt. The mask was crafted from solid gold and inlaid with semi-precious stones, including lapis lazuli, turquoise, and carnelian. The mask was designed to preserve the likeness of the young king for eternity, ensuring that his Ka, or life force, would recognize him in the afterlife. The golden mask itself was not just a funerary object, but a symbol of divine protection and immortality. It was designed to serve as a vessel for the king's soul, ensuring that his spirit would remain intact as it journeyed through the afterlife. Gold also had a practical function in ancient Egypt. The ancient Egyptians believed that the physical world and the spiritual world were intimately connected, and that the items placed in a tomb would accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Gold was used to craft not only the funerary objects, but also the daily necessities of life: furniture, clothing, food, and even toys, all made of gold or inlaid with gold. The idea was that these items would be used by the deceased in the afterlife, ensuring that they were comfortable and well-equipped for their journey. The inclusion of gold in these objects was meant to signify the divine nature of the afterlife, where the soul would continue to enjoy the same comforts and luxuries that it had in life. The use of gold was also tied to the concept of resurrection. In ancient Egyptian belief, death was not seen as an end, but as a transformation. The soul of the deceased would undergo a journey through the afterlife, where it would encounter trials and tribulations before being judged by the gods. If the soul was found worthy, it would be granted eternal life, and the deceased would be reborn into a new existence. Gold, as the material of the gods, was thought to be a conduit for this rebirth. By placing gold objects in the tomb, the Egyptians believed that they were providing the deceased with the means to pass through these trials and to achieve resurrection. Gold was not just a symbol of the afterlife. It was a tool to ensure the success of the soul's journey. In addition to its association with the gods and the afterlife, gold also had a social and political significance in ancient Egypt. Gold was a symbol of wealth, power, and prestige, and it was used to demonstrate the status of the pharaohs and the elite of Egyptian society. The pharaohs, as the divine rulers of Egypt, were often depicted wearing vast quantities of gold jewelry, including necklaces, bracelets, and rings. These gold adornments were not just for ornamentation. They were meant to communicate the king's divine status and his connection to the gods. Gold was a means of reinforcing the pharaoh's authority and the belief that he was chosen by the gods to rule. Gold also played a key role in Egyptian religion. Temples and statues of the gods were often covered in gold or gold leaf, reinforcing the idea that the gods themselves were divine beings who existed in a realm of eternal light and purity. In the Temple of Karnak, for example, the statues of the gods were often gilded, giving them a radiant, godlike quality. The temples themselves were also adorned with gold, both to honor the gods and to ensure that the temple and its inhabitants would be blessed with divine protection. The use of gold in these sacred spaces was meant to symbolize the eternal nature of the gods, as well as their power to bring life and order to the world. Throughout Egyptian history, the use of gold remained constant. As Egypt's wealth and power grew, so too did its use of gold in art, jewelry, and religious objects. The gold treasures of the pharaohs, including jewelry, statues, and ritual objects, became increasingly elaborate and sophisticated. The discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb revealed not only the extraordinary skill of Egyptian craftsmen, but also the profound spiritual and cultural significance of gold. The treasures found in the tomb, including the golden mask, the golden chariot, and the gold-covered furniture, serve as a testament to the belief in the divine power of gold and its role in ensuring the king's immortality. Gold also continued to serve as a symbol of divine rule. The golden mask of King Tut is perhaps the most famous example of this. Crafted with great care and skill, the mask not only preserved the likeness of a young king, but also symbolized his divine nature. The mask's radiant gold surface is a reflection of the sun, which the Egyptians associated with life and resurrection. In this sense, the golden mask can be seen as an image of rebirth, a symbol of the king's continued existence in the afterlife, where he would be united with the gods and would enjoy eternal life. In the end, gold in ancient Egypt was far more than a material possession. It was a divine substance, a link between the mortal and the divine, and a symbol of eternal life. Its radiant glow embodied the essence of the sun god Ra, and its presence in the tombs of pharaohs and nobility was a reflection of the hope for immortality. Through the use of gold, the ancient Egyptians sought to bridge the gap between life and death, ensuring that their rulers and their loved ones would live on forever, shining in the light of the gods. The discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 is often regarded as one of the greatest archaeological finds of the 20th century. It was not just the discovery of a tomb, but the unearthing of an entire world that had remained sealed for over 3,000 years. The tomb of King Tut was not only one of the most well-preserved royal tombs ever discovered, but also offered a rare glimpse into the grandeur of ancient Egypt, showcasing a wealth of treasures and artifacts that revealed the cultural, religious, and artistic splendor of the time. However, the tomb's discovery was not a simple excavation. It was the culmination of years of perseverance, and its significance continues to resonate in the world of archaeology and beyond. The tomb of King Tut was located in the Valley of the Kings, a royal burial ground on the west bank of the Nile River near Luxor, Egypt. This valley had been the final resting place for many of Egypt's most famous pharaohs, including Ramses II and Seti I, and was known for its elaborate tombs, which are often carved into the cliffs of the valley's mountains. The Valley of the Kings was chosen because it offered seclusion and protection for the royal dead, away from the prying eyes of tomb robbers who had plagued earlier burial sites. However, by the time Howard Carter began his work in the valley, most of the tombs had already been looted, leaving archaeologists to search for any remaining untouched tombs. For many years, the Valley of the Kings had been thoroughly explored, and it seemed as though every possible tomb had already been discovered. Carter, a British archaeologist with a keen eye for detail, had been working in the valley for years, focusing on a relatively obscure area that had not yielded any significant finds. Despite doubts from his peers, Carter was determined to continue his search. In 1917, Carter began his search in earnest for the tomb of King Tutankhamun, a relatively minor pharaoh who had ruled Egypt for a short period of time but had left behind a significant legacy in the form of his tomb. The search was an arduous one. The Valley of the Kings had already been extensively explored, and many of the tombs had already been looted by thieves over the centuries. Carter had no guarantees that his search would be fruitful, but he remained undeterred. For 5 long seasons, he and his team worked tirelessly, clearing debris and searching for any signs of a hidden tomb. Then, on November 4th, 1922, Carter made the breakthrough that would change history forever. While excavating near the tomb of Ramses VI, Carter and his team discovered a set of stone steps that led down into the earth. At first, Carter could not believe his eyes. He had found what appeared to be the entrance to an untouched tomb, a discovery that was almost too good to be true. The tomb had been sealed for over 3 millennia, hidden beneath layers of debris and sand. For Carter, it was a moment of triumph, the culmination of years of hard work and unwavering belief that the tomb of the young pharaoh had yet to be found. The steps led to a sealed door, which Carter's team carefully removed. Behind the door, they found the tomb's inner chambers, filled with treasures and artifacts that had been left untouched since King Tutankhamun's burial. It was clear that the tomb had been undisturbed for centuries, offering a rare and extraordinary opportunity to study the burial practices of ancient Egypt in their most complete form. The walls of the tomb were decorated with intricate paintings depicting scenes from the afterlife, and the tomb itself was filled with thousands of objects, including statues, jewelry, weapons, furniture, and even a golden chariot. The tomb's layout was typical of royal tombs from the 18th dynasty, but what made King Tut's tomb unique was its size and the sheer quantity of artifacts inside. Unlike the grand, expansive tombs of pharaohs such as Ramses II or Seti I, King Tut's tomb was relatively small and modest in comparison. However, this modesty in size did not diminish its significance. The treasures within the tomb were a testament to the craftsmanship and artistry of ancient Egypt, showcasing the intricate details and luxurious materials used in the creation of royal burial items. Among the most famous artifacts discovered in the tomb was King Tut's golden burial mask, which would become the defining symbol of the discovery. The mask, made of solid gold and adorned with semi-precious stones, was placed over the king's mummified face to ensure that his spirit would recognize him in the afterlife. The mask is one of the most iconic and instantly recognizable symbols of ancient Egypt, and its discovery brought worldwide attention to the tomb. However, the mask was just one of thousands of items found in the tomb, each with its own story to tell. The treasures of King Tut's tomb were a reflection of a young pharaoh's life, his royal status, and his connection to the divine. There were gold-covered chariots, weapons, and shields, all of which were intended to accompany him into the afterlife. These objects were not just luxuries. They were seen as necessary items for the king's continued existence in the next world. The ancient Egyptians believed that the deceased would need similar objects to those they had used in life to ensure their comfort and protection in the afterlife. As such, King Tut's tomb was filled with offerings designed to serve him in his journey through the afterlife. In addition to the physical treasures, the tomb contained numerous inscriptions and paintings that depicted scenes from the afterlife. These paintings, which adorned the walls of the tomb, were not mere decorations, but were believed to have a magical function. They were meant to ensure that the deceased king would be protected on his journey to the afterlife and would be granted eternal life by the gods. The paintings included scenes of King Tut's journey through the underworld, his judgment before the gods, and his eventual rebirth into the eternal realm of the gods. These images were meant to guide the pharaoh's soul through the various stages of the afterlife, offering him protection and guidance. One of the most striking aspects of the tomb was the sheer number of objects that had been preserved within it. King Tut's tomb contained over 5,000 artifacts, making it one of the most richly furnished tombs ever discovered. These artifacts range from everyday items such as clothing, food, and furniture to more elaborate objects like statues, jewelry, and gold-covered chariots. The presence of such a wide array of items in the tomb offered an unprecedented opportunity for archaeologists to study the material culture of ancient Egypt, shedding light on the daily life of the pharaohs and their court. The fact that the tomb had been hidden for so long made it even more remarkable. While most tombs in the Valley of the Kings have been looted by tomb robbers over the centuries, King Tut's tomb had remained sealed and untouched. This allowed archaeologists to examine the items inside the tomb in their original, undisturbed state. It also provided a rare opportunity to study the mummification process and the burial practices of the 18th dynasty in their purest form. The wealth of information gained from the discovery of King Tut's tomb has had a profound impact on the field of Egyptology, providing insights into ancient Egyptian religion, art, and craftsmanship. Despite the many treasures found within the tomb, it was not without its mysteries. The fact that King Tut's tomb was relatively small and modest compared to other royal tombs led many to question why such a young and relatively insignificant pharaoh would receive such a lavish burial. Some historians have speculated that the tomb was originally intended for someone else, perhaps a more prominent ruler, and that King Tut was buried there after his sudden and unexpected death. The true reasons behind the tomb's design and its contents remain a subject of debate among scholars, adding to the intrigue surrounding the discovery. The tomb's discovery also sparked a wave of interest in ancient Egypt and its culture. The treasures found within the tomb captured the imagination of people around the world, and King Tut became an international symbol of the allure and mystery of ancient Egypt. The discovery of the tomb and its treasures helped to fuel the popularity of Egyptology, and it remains one of the most significant archaeological events in modern history. Today, the tomb of King Tutankhamun is a symbol of the enduring fascination with ancient Egypt and its culture. Although the tomb is no longer open to the public, the artifacts discovered within it are displayed in museums around the world, where they continue to inspire awe and wonder. The discovery of King Tut's tomb, hidden for thousands of years beneath the sands of Egypt, allowed the world to catch a fleeting glimpse of the grandeur and mystery of the ancient world. It is a reminder that, even in death, the pharaohs sought to ensure their immortality and their place among the gods. The idea of a curse surrounding the tomb of King Tutankhamun has captivated people's imaginations for nearly a century, intertwining the allure of ancient Egypt with the mysterious and often eerie tales of untimely deaths, strange occurrences, and ominous warnings. The so-called Curse of the Pharaohs became part of popular folklore after the discovery of King Tut's tomb in 1922, when a series of unexpected deaths and unexplained events were linked to the tomb and its treasures. This curse, which was rumored to befall those who dared to disturb the final resting place of the pharaohs, would come to overshadow the excitement of the archaeological discovery, forever embedding itself in the collective consciousness. The curse, as it is popularly told, originates from the belief that ancient Egyptians placed powerful, supernatural protections around their tombs, warning against tomb robbers and anyone who might disturb the resting place of the deceased. These tombs, filled with riches and treasures intended to accompany the deceased into the afterlife, were thought to be protected by curses meant to deter desecration. The idea was that the spirit of the deceased would exact vengeance upon those who violated the sanctity of their tombs, ensuring that they would suffer misfortune, illness, or even death. Though the curse was a central theme in many ancient Egyptian funerary texts, the specific curse of the pharaohs that surrounds King Tutankhamun's tomb was not an ancient Egyptian belief, but rather a creation of the modern era, fueled by a combination of tragic events, superstition, and the media. The legend of King Tut's curse truly began to take shape after the death of Lord Carnarvon, the British aristocrat who had financed the excavation of the tomb. On April 5, 1923, just a few months after the tomb was opened, Lord Carnarvon died suddenly from an infected mosquito bite that led to blood poisoning. His untimely death sparked immediate speculation, with many wondering if the curse had been activated. As a prominent figure in the excavation, Lord Carnarvon's death was particularly shocking, and it gave rise to sensationalized reports in the press, which were quick to make the connection between his death and the opening of King Tut's tomb. Soon after Carnarvon's death, stories began to surface about other individuals associated with the discovery who had either died or fallen ill under mysterious circumstances. The press sensationalized the deaths, painting them as the result of the pharaoh's curse, and every new tragedy was linked to the tomb's supposed supernatural power. One of the most prominent figures to be caught up in the rumors was George Gould, an American businessman who had visited the tomb and was said to have contracted a fever shortly afterward. While Gould did survive, other notable figures associated with the tomb's discovery were not so lucky. Sir Bruce Ingram, a newspaper publisher, lost his home to a fire shortly after his visit to the tomb, and his wife was seriously injured. These events, along with other reports of illness and misfortune, led to an ever-growing belief that the tomb's curse was real. However, as the number of deaths continued to mount, the story of the curse became more complex. In total, several individuals linked to the excavation of King Tut's tomb experienced unexpected deaths, accidents, or illnesses. Some died under strange and unexplained circumstances, while others suffered long periods of illness or personal tragedy. Among these was Richard Bethel, Lord Carnarvon's secretary, who died under mysterious circumstances in 1929, just a few years after the tomb's discovery. The connection between these events and the curse of the pharaohs only seemed to strengthen as more people with ties to the tomb began to meet untimely ends. Despite these deaths, many of the individuals connected to the discovery of the tomb lived long lives without any ill effects. Howard Carter, the lead archaeologist who oversaw the excavation of King Tut's tomb, lived until 1939, passing away from natural causes at the age of 64. In fact, Carter's survival, and the survival of many other members of the excavation team, led some to believe that the curse was simply a myth, a product of coincidence and sensational media reports rather than a supernatural force. Critics of the curse theory argue that it was the result of normal statistical chance, given the number of people involved in the excavation and the high likelihood that some of them would die under unfortunate circumstances, regardless of any supposed curse. The truth, as is often the case with such legends, is likely a combination of both fact and fiction. The idea of a curse surrounding the tomb of King Tut may have been exaggerated by the media, but it's important to understand the cultural context in which these beliefs emerged. The ancient Egyptians were deeply concerned with the concept of immortality and the afterlife, and they often placed warnings and curses within their tombs to protect their remains from desecration. These curses were often meant to scare tomb robbers, not to be taken as literal threats to the living. Yet, in the case of King Tut's tomb, the media and public fascination with the mysterious death connected to the tomb transformed these ancient warnings into a modern myth. The timing of the deaths associated with the opening of the tomb only added fuel to the fire. The early 20th century was a time when superstition and mysticism were particularly potent in Western society, and the discovery of a tomb filled with unimaginable treasures, from golden masks to elaborate jewelry, could easily be woven into a narrative of ancient curses and the wrath of the gods. In addition, the rapid rise of popular media outlets, such as newspapers and radio, contributed to the widespread dissemination of the curse legend. In an age before the internet and mass communication, sensational stories like the curse of King Tut were often magnified and repeated, giving them a life of their own. Today, most scholars and archaeologists dismiss the idea of a supernatural curse surrounding King Tut's tomb as pure fiction. The deaths linked to the tomb are often explained by natural causes, accidents, or illnesses common among people of the time. The widespread hysteria surrounding the curse, while fascinating, has been largely debunked, but it remains a part of the enduring mythos of ancient Egypt. It has taken on a life of its own, perpetuated by movies, books, documentaries, and public fascination with the mysterious side of archaeology. The curse of the pharaohs has become an indelible part of the story of King Tutankhamun, even if it was not truly the work of ancient magic or divine retribution. Interestingly, the curse narrative also speaks to broader human tendencies to seek patterns in chaotic events. The fact that some individuals associated with the tomb's discovery died tragically and unexpectedly created a narrative that people wanted to believe. It provided an explanation for the unexplained and gave the discovery a sense of mystique and danger. While this narrative has been largely debunked, the legend of the curse continues to captivate the public, contributing to the enduring intrigue surrounding King Tut's tomb. The curse of the pharaohs remains one of the most enduring legends of modern archaeology. While there is no scientific evidence to support the idea that an ancient curse is responsible for the deaths and misfortunes of those involved in the tomb's discovery, the mythology surrounding the curse has become intertwined with the story of King Tut. It is a reminder of the power of storytelling and the human tendency to seek meaning in the unknown. Whether or not there was a supernatural force at work, the curse has become as much a part of the legacy of King Tut's tomb as the treasures and the tomb itself, casting a long shadow over the excitement and wonder of one of history's most extraordinary archaeological finds. Mummification in ancient Egypt was more than a burial practice. It was a deeply spiritual process, rooted in the Egyptian belief in life after death and the quest for immortality. The Egyptians believed that the body needed to be preserved for the soul to live on in the afterlife. The mummification process, with its meticulous steps and sacred rituals, was intended to ensure that the deceased body would remain intact and protected, allowing their soul to reunite with the gods and continue its journey to eternity. This elaborate procedure, which evolved over thousands of years, was reserved for the elite, including pharaohs, nobles, and other high-ranking officials, though by the New Kingdom, it became more accessible to wealthier individuals who could afford it. At its core, mummification was a practice that involved the preservation of the body through a combination of techniques that removed moisture and prevented decay. However, this process was not simply about physical preservation. It was a spiritual journey, one that ensured that the deceased would be able to recognize their body in the afterlife, where they would need it to continue their existence. The process was highly ritualistic, with priests and embalmers performing specific tasks to safeguard the body, the soul, and the afterlife. The process began shortly after death, when the body was transported to the embalming workshop, usually located near the tomb. Upon arrival, the body was thoroughly washed and purified with water and a variety of aromatic oils, often infused with myrrh and other fragrant substances. These rituals helped to cleanse the body, both physically and spiritually, preparing it for the journey to the afterlife. The body was then carefully inspected to determine the extent of mummification needed. Some bodies, particularly those of the wealthy, underwent an extensive process, while others, such as those of the poor, may have been mummified more simply. One of the most critical steps in the mummification process was the removal of the internal organs. The ancient Egyptians believed that the organs were essential for the body to function in the afterlife, but they also needed to be removed to prevent decomposition. The embalmers first made an incision on the left side of the body, just below the ribs, and carefully removed the internal organs, including the stomach, intestines, lungs, and liver. These organs were then cleaned and preserved separately, typically in canopic jars, which were placed in the tomb alongside the mummified body. Each canopic jar was specifically designed to hold a different organ and was often inscribed with the name of the deceased and images of protective gods. After the internal organs were removed, the body was carefully dehydrated using natron, a naturally occurring salt mixture of sodium carbonate, sodium bicarbonate, and sodium chloride. Natron was essential for the preservation process because it absorbed moisture, which would otherwise cause the body to decay. The body was covered in natron and left to dry for about 40 days, a critical period in the mummification process. During this time, the skin would become dry and leathery, and the body would begin to take on the distinct, preserved appearance that is often associated with mummies. The process of drying the body was crucial not only for physical preservation, but also to ensure that the body would remain intact for the soul's recognition in the afterlife. Once the body had been sufficiently dried, the next step was the restoration of its features. The embalmers would apply oils and resins to the body to soften and preserve the skin. They would also pack the body with a variety of materials, such as sawdust, linen, and other substances, to help maintain its shape and structure. This was especially important for the face, as it was crucial that the deceased's features be recognizable in the afterlife. In some cases, a mask was placed over the face of the mummified individual, often made of linen or plaster, and painted to resemble the person's likeness. Next, the body was carefully wrapped in linen bandages. The wrapping process was done with great care, as each layer of linen was intended to secure and protect the body for eternity. The embalmers would often wrap the body in multiple layers, sometimes as many as 20 or more, with each layer being coated with a layer of resin to help preserve the body and keep the bandages in place. As the body was wrapped, amulets and charms were inserted into the bandages. These amulets, which were often made of gold, faience, or other materials, were placed strategically on the body to protect the deceased from harm and ensure a safe passage through the afterlife. Some of these amulets depicted gods or magical symbols, while others were designed to protect specific parts of the body, such as the heart, which was believed to be the seat of the soul. After the body was fully wrapped, the final step in the mummification process was the placement of the mummy in a coffin or sarcophagus. The coffin, which was typically made of wood, was often intricately decorated with scenes from the deceased's life or images of the gods. It would be inscribed with the name of the deceased and the titles that they had held during their lifetime. In some cases, the coffin was placed inside a larger stone sarcophagus, which provided additional protection. The sarcophagus was often elaborately painted and inscribed with spells and prayers to ensure the deceased's protection in the afterlife. This included spells from the Book of the Dead, which was a collection of magical texts that guided the deceased through the perilous journey of the underworld. The final stage of the mummification process was the burial itself. The mummy was placed in its tomb, along with a variety of objects designed to assist in the afterlife. These items ranged from everyday objects, such as furniture and food, to more symbolic objects, such as statues of gods, jewelry, and even chariots. The idea was that the deceased would need these items to ensure their comfort and safety in the afterlife. For the pharaohs, elaborate burial rituals were performed by priests and family members, with the tomb sealed and the body guarded by sacred objects and inscriptions to prevent intrusion. In the case of King Tutankhamun, the mummification process was similarly meticulous and carefully executed. Though King Tut was a relatively young pharaoh who died unexpectedly at the age of 18 or 19, his tomb contained all of the elements of a royal burial. His body was embalmed with great care, and it was placed in a series of coffins, the innermost of which was made of solid gold. The gold coffin and other treasures found in his tomb reflected the wealth and grandeur of his short reign, even though his mummification was believed to have been somewhat rushed due to the sudden nature of his death. The mummification process, with its intricate rituals and symbolic significance, reflected the ancient Egyptians' profound beliefs in the afterlife and the continuity of the soul. For the Egyptians, death was not an end, but a transition into another life, and the mummification process was designed to ensure that the deceased could journey safely into this next world. The preserved body, the tomb, and the funerary items were all part of a carefully orchestrated system designed to protect the soul and enable it to reach its eternal resting place. This sacred ritual, which spanned thousands of years, allowed the ancient Egyptians to defy death in a way that was unique to their culture, leaving behind a legacy of mummies that continue to fascinate and intrigue us today. The mummification process, though a common practice for the elite in ancient Egypt, was a reflection of the culture's deep-seated belief in the afterlife and their desire for immortality. By carefully preserving the body and surrounding it with symbols of protection, the Egyptians sought to ensure that their journey into the next world would be a smooth and safe one. Through this elaborate and sacred practice, the ancient Egyptians believed that they could transcend death and continue to live forever in the company of the gods. The discovery of King Tutankhamun's golden burial mask is arguably one of the most iconic moments in the history of archaeology. When Howard Carter's team unearthed the tomb of the young pharaoh in 1922, it was not only the wealth of treasures that captured the world's attention, but the sheer magnificence and symbolic power of the golden mask itself. More than just a funerary item, the mask came to symbolize the grandeur of ancient Egypt and the mystery surrounding the reign and death of King Tut. Crafted with extraordinary skill, the mask has become an emblem of both Egyptian artistry and the eternal quest for immortality. The golden mask, which was placed over King Tutankhamun's mummified face, was intended to ensure that the king's soul would recognize him in the afterlife. According to ancient Egyptian beliefs, the soul of the deceased would journey through the underworld, and during this journey, it would encounter various trials. The physical body, which had been preserved through mummification, would serve as the vessel that allowed the soul to recognize its earthly form. The mask, therefore, was not just an ornament. It was an essential part of the king's transition to the afterlife. It was meant to protect and preserve the king's features for eternity, a sacred act that reflected the importance of identity and continuity in the Egyptian worldview. Crafted from solid gold, the mask is an extraordinary example of Egyptian craftsmanship. Standing over 21 inches, 53 centimeters, tall and weighing around 11 kilograms, 24 pounds, the mask is made from a thin sheet of gold that has been hammered and shaped to fit King Tut's face. The precision with which the mask was created is remarkable, as it captures every detail of the young pharaoh's features, including his eyes, nose, and mouth. The artisans who crafted the mask used various techniques, including inlaying semi-precious stones such as lapis lazuli, turquoise, and carnelian to create a vibrant and striking appearance. The mask is also adorned with a blue and gold headdress, further adding to its grandeur. The golden headdress is intricately decorated with symbols of Egypt's royal regalia, including the cobra and vulture, which represent the goddess Wadjet and the goddess Nekhbet, protectors of Lower and Upper Egypt, respectively. These symbols of divine power were included to safeguard the pharaoh in his journey through the afterlife. One of the most striking features of the mask is its portrayal of King Tut's youthful face. The king is depicted with wide, almond-shaped eyes, a serene expression, and a high forehead, which is characteristic of the artistic conventions of the time. The mask conveys a sense of eternal youth, emphasizing the idea that the king, despite his untimely death at the age of 18, would remain youthful and vital in the afterlife. The inclusion of his youthful features also served to reinforce the notion of rebirth, a key theme in ancient Egyptian belief, as the king would be reborn into the next life, untouched by the ravages of time and decay. The golden mask was designed not only to ensure the king's identity in the afterlife, but also to symbolize his divine status. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was considered the living god on earth, the intermediary between the gods and humanity. As such, the pharaoh's image needed to reflect his divine nature. The mask, with its radiant golden surface and regal design, reinforced the idea that the king was more than just a mortal ruler. He was a divine being who would continue to reign in the afterlife. The use of gold itself held significant symbolic weight in ancient Egypt, as gold was believed to be the flesh of the gods, a material that was eternal and impervious to decay. The golden mask, therefore, not only preserved the king's likeness, but also embodied his divine essence, ensuring that he would live on forever in the realm of the gods. The mask was also an important religious symbol. Ancient Egyptians believed that the gods themselves were made of gold, and the radiant glow of gold was seen as a reflection of divine light. By using gold to craft the mask, the artisans were connecting the young king to the realm of the gods, where he would continue to live after death. The mask's golden surface, which glistened in the light, was symbolic of the sun's rays, representing life, regeneration, and eternal existence. The Egyptians associated gold with the sun god Ra, whose golden rays were believed to bring life and warmth to the earth. In this sense, the mask could be seen as a physical manifestation of the king's connection to Ra, ensuring that he would be bathed in divine light as he moved through the afterlife. The discovery of the mask in the tomb of King Tut was nothing short of astonishing. It was found in the burial chamber, resting on top of the mummified body of the young king, which was enclosed within 3 nested coffins. The moment of its discovery was a pivotal moment in the history of archaeology, not only because of the mask's exquisite craftsmanship, but also because of what it represented: a connection to the divine, to immortality, and to the mysteries of the ancient world. The mask's discovery brought to light the splendor of ancient Egyptian royal tombs, revealing a level of wealth, artistry, and craftsmanship that had been lost to history for millennia. King Tut's golden mask has since become one of the most famous artifacts in the world, drawing millions of visitors to museums across the globe. It stands as a testament to the ancient Egyptians' remarkable artistic abilities, their complex religious beliefs, and their unwavering commitment to preserving the dead for the afterlife. The mask has also come to symbolize the mystery and intrigue that surrounds King Tut's reign, his untimely death, and the countless unanswered questions about his life and legacy. Despite the numerous theories surrounding his death, King Tut's mask remains one of the most tangible links to the ancient world, offering a glimpse into the grandeur of Egyptian royalty and the eternal aspirations of the pharaohs. The mask's fame, however, has not been without controversy. In recent years, there has been significant debate surrounding its restoration and the preservation of the mask itself. In 2014, the mask was accidentally damaged during cleaning at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo when the beard became detached from the rest of the mask. The incident sparked a media frenzy and raised concerns about the safety and care of Egypt's cultural heritage. While the mask was successfully repaired, the event highlighted the challenges involved in preserving such delicate and priceless artifacts. Despite these challenges, the golden mask continues to be one of the most enduring symbols of ancient Egypt. It serves as a powerful reminder of the civilization's achievements in art, religion, and the afterlife. More than just a funerary object, the mask represents the eternal quest for immortality and the belief that death was not an end, but a transformation. In King Tut's mask, we see a reflection of the ancient Egyptian worldview, a belief in the divine, a respect for the dead, and an unwavering commitment to ensuring that the soul would live on forever, bathed in the light of the gods. The mask is not just an artifact, but a symbol of the rich cultural heritage of ancient Egypt. It represents the remarkable artistic skills of the craftsmen who created it and the profound religious beliefs that guided the mummification process. As we gaze upon the golden visage of King Tut, we are reminded not only of the power and prestige of Egypt's rulers, but also of the enduring legacy of their civilization. The mask, with its shining gold and serene expression, is a timeless testament to the grandeur and mystery of the ancient world. The treasure trove found within King Tutankhamun's tomb stands as a dazzling testament to the wealth, artistry, and spiritual beliefs of ancient Egypt. When Howard Carter and his team first opened the tomb in 1922, they were greeted by a staggering array of objects: golden statues, intricately crafted jewelry, ceremonial chests, weapons, and everyday items. Everything one might need for a journey into the afterlife. These treasures were not merely relics of a bygone time. They were the sacred possessions of a royal pharaoh, carefully selected and placed to ensure that King Tutankhamun's soul would be well-equipped and protected on its journey through the afterlife. The sheer quantity and variety of objects found in the tomb and the level of detail in their craftsmanship revealed much about the religious beliefs, cultural practices, and social hierarchies of ancient Egypt. When Carter entered the tomb, the sight was unlike anything he had ever encountered. Unlike many tombs in the Valley of the Kings, which had been looted over the centuries, King Tut's tomb was largely intact. The vast majority of the treasures within the tomb had been untouched since the burial of the young king, some 3,000 years earlier. The burial chamber was filled with artifacts that had been carefully arranged to reflect the needs of the deceased in the afterlife. These objects were not just valuable treasures, but symbolic items, each with a specific role in the king's spiritual journey. Among the most famous and significant items found in the tomb was the gold coffin of King Tutankhamun. This coffin was one of three that housed the king's mummified body, with the innermost coffin being crafted from solid gold. The intricate workmanship of the coffin, adorned with images of gods and hieroglyphic inscriptions, demonstrated the high level of artistry that characterized ancient Egyptian royal burial practices. The gold was believed to represent the eternal flesh of the gods, and by using it for the coffin, the artisans were ensuring that the king would be protected in the afterlife and would join the gods in their divine realm. In addition to the coffin, there were numerous other items made of gold, including jewelry, amulets, and statues, all of which were intended to serve both as symbols of the king's divine nature and as offerings to the gods. Another remarkable discovery was the array of chariots found in the tomb. These chariots, two of which were made of solid wood and covered in gold leaf, were designed to accompany the king in the afterlife, where they would be needed for his journey across the afterworld. The chariots, along with a number of weapons and shields, represented the warrior aspect of the pharaoh, reminding both the king and those who viewed the tomb of his power and authority in life. These chariots were a reflection of the military prowess of ancient Egypt, and their inclusion in the tomb underscored the belief that the king would need such items to defend himself and maintain his royal status in the afterlife. Perhaps one of the most striking items discovered in the tomb was the throne of King Tut. This throne, which was made of wood and covered in gold, depicted scenes of a young pharaoh sitting in a regal pose, with the queen beside him. The throne was not only a symbol of the king's earthly rule, but also a reflection of his divine right to govern. The scenes on the backrest of the throne, which are painted in vivid colors, illustrate the king's interaction with the gods, reinforcing the idea that the pharaoh was a divine ruler with the authority to mediate between the gods and the people. The throne was an object of immense importance, symbolizing the king's power both in life and in the afterlife. The tomb also contained a multitude of personal items, many of which had never been seen before in such detail. These items range from everyday objects such as clothing, furniture, and food to more luxurious objects like perfumes, cosmetics, and chests filled with jewels. Among these treasures were beautiful glass vases, intricately designed wooden boxes, and even a set of wooden gaming pieces, all designed to accompany the king in the afterlife. These items were intended to provide comfort and pleasure to the pharaoh as he embarked on his journey into the next world. The presence of these everyday objects in the tomb reflected the ancient Egyptian belief that life after death would be a continuation of life on earth, albeit in a transformed and divine state. One of the most fascinating and mysterious aspects of the treasures found in King Tut's tomb was the discovery of a set of canopic jars, which were used to store the internal organs of the king. The jars were placed in the tomb alongside the mummy and were thought to protect the organs, which were believed to be necessary for the king's soul to function in the afterlife. These jars were made of various materials, including alabaster and limestone, and were each inscribed with protective symbols. The lids of the jars were shaped like the heads of the four sons of Horus. Gods were believed to safeguard the organs. The presence of these jars, along with the other mummification tools found in the tomb, underscore the elaborate and highly ritualized nature of ancient Egyptian burial practices. The wealth of jewelry discovered in the tomb was also remarkable. King Tut's tomb contained an incredible variety of gold and precious stone jewelry, including necklaces, rings, bracelets, and earrings. Many of these pieces were inlaid with lapis lazuli, turquoise, carnelian, and other semi-precious stones, creating intricate and colorful designs. These pieces were not only beautiful works of art, but also carried deep symbolic meaning. Jewelry in ancient Egypt was often imbued with magical properties and was believed to provide protection and good fortune to the wearer. The fact that so much jewelry was found in the tomb suggested that the young king, despite his relatively short reign, was seen as a powerful and wealthy ruler, worthy of such treasures in the afterlife. In addition to the jewelry, there were numerous statues and figurines found within the tomb. These included statues of gods, goddesses, and animals, as well as small effigies of the king himself. These statues were intended to serve as representations of the divine and as offerings to the gods, ensuring that the king would have the protection and blessings of the gods in the afterlife. Some of these statues depicted Tutankhamun in his role as a divine ruler, while others showed him in more personal, intimate settings, such as seated with his queen. These statues were often placed in niches within the tomb, forming a kind of sacred space where the king's soul could interact with the divine. The discovery of the treasures in King Tut's tomb was not only a remarkable archaeological achievement, but also a window into the religious and cultural practices of ancient Egypt. The items found in the tomb were not simply valuable objects. They were deeply symbolic and spiritual in nature. The treasures represented the king's status as a divine ruler, his relationship with the gods, and his journey into the afterlife. Every item, whether it was a gilded chariot or a set of wooden gaming pieces, had a purpose: to protect, honor, and sustain the pharaoh in his eternal existence. As the world marveled at the treasure trove unearthed in King Tut's tomb, the discovery also raised questions about the significance of these items in the context of ancient Egyptian religion. The belief in life after death and the elaborate rituals that accompanied royal burials painted a vivid picture of a civilization that viewed death not as an end, but as a continuation of life in a divine realm. The wealth and beauty of the treasures found in the tomb spoke to the Egyptians' deep reverence for their pharaohs, whom they believed to be gods on earth, and the lengths they went to ensure that these divine rulers would be well prepared for the next phase of their existence. In the end, the treasures of King Tutankhamun's tomb provide us with more than just a glimpse into the opulence of ancient Egyptian royalty. They offer us a window into the spiritual beliefs, artistic achievements, and cultural values that defined one of the most advanced civilizations of the ancient world. These treasures, carefully selected and preserved for the afterlife, remind us of the Egyptians' enduring quest for immortality and their belief in the eternal nature of the soul. The untimely death of King Tutankhamun, at the age of approximately 18 or 19, has long been one of history's most enduring mysteries. Although he became one of the most famous pharaohs in Egyptian history, much of what we know about Tut's life and death remains shrouded in speculation and debate. Theories about his death have ranged from natural causes to assassination, and even supernatural explanations, with modern science only recently providing insights into what might have actually occurred. This uncertainty, combined with the dramatic discovery of his nearly intact tomb and the subsequent association with the so-called curse of the pharaohs, has only intensified the intrigue surrounding his premature demise. For decades, the death of King Tut was assumed to be the result of an accident, given his young age and the fact that he had only been on the throne for a few years. The first examination of his mummy, conducted shortly after the discovery of his tomb in 1922, revealed that he had suffered from several health problems, including a pronounced limp and weakened bones. However, it wasn't until 1968, when his mummy was re-examined with the help of more advanced X-ray technology, that new theories about his death began to emerge. Prior to this, many Egyptologists believed that Tut had died from a simple fever or a childhood illness, as there was no visible sign of foul play. One of the most prominent early theories about Tut's death was that he succumbed to a bacterial or viral infection, possibly following a long period of illness. According to this theory, Tut's health problems, including the deformities and bone degeneration that had been noted in earlier examinations, were the result of an infectious disease. This hypothesis gained traction in part because ancient Egypt, like many ancient civilizations, was vulnerable to a variety of diseases, including malaria and tuberculosis, both of which were common in the region at the time. The young king's apparent frailty and the symptoms he displayed, such as a weakened immune system and physical deformities, seemed to support the idea that he may have been afflicted by an infection that eventually led to his death. Malaria, in particular, has been one of the most widely discussed potential causes of King Tut's death. Malaria was a common and deadly disease in ancient Egypt, and it is believed to have been spread by the Anopheles mosquito, which thrived in the region's warm, wet environment. In fact, some of the earliest studies of King Tut's mummy indicated that traces of the malaria parasite were present in his system, suggesting that he may have contracted the disease shortly before his death. However, it wasn't until 2005, when a team of scientists used advanced genetic testing techniques on Tut's mummified remains, that definitive evidence of malaria was found. This discovery sparked a renewed interest in the theory that Tut's death was caused by a severe case of malaria, which could have rapidly debilitated his already weakened body. In addition to malaria, there has been speculation that Tut's death could have been the result of an autoimmune disorder, such as lupus or a rare genetic condition. This theory gained momentum after scientists discovered that Tut had several genetic disorders that were passed down to him by his parents. It is believed that Tut's mother and father, both of whom were likely siblings, passed on defective genes that caused his physical ailments, including a clubfoot and a weakened immune system. These genetic conditions may have made him more susceptible to diseases and infections, potentially contributing to his early death. One of the most startling discoveries about Tut's DNA was that he had a cleft palate and a slightly misshapen skull, which could have been a result of inbreeding, as his parents were both members of the royal family, which often practiced sibling marriages to preserve the purity of the bloodline. Some researchers speculate that the king's frailty and deformities could have made him especially vulnerable to the rigors of ruling, as well as to the harsh conditions of ancient Egypt. While infectious diseases and genetic disorders are compelling explanations for King Tut's death, there are alternative theories that suggest foul play may have been involved. Some Egyptologists have proposed that Tutankhamun was murdered either by political rivals or by members of the royal court. This theory is based on the idea that Tut's sudden death was too convenient for those who may have stood to gain from his passing. As a young pharaoh, Tut was not yet fully in control of Egypt's political machinery, and it is believed that powerful figures in his court, such as his vizier or military leaders, may have wanted to seize power. Some even suggest that Tut's death was a result of a coup, with one of his advisors or family members plotting to remove him from the throne. However, no clear evidence of murder has been found, and the physical examination of his body, including the use of CT scans and X-rays, has not revealed any signs of violent trauma that would suggest an assassination. A more recent theory suggests that King Tut may have died as a result of an accident. This theory is particularly compelling given that Tut is believed to have had some degree of physical frailty, as evidenced by his clubfoot and his difficulty in walking. Some researchers propose that he may have been involved in a chariot accident, which could have caused internal injuries or broken bones that ultimately led to his death. The presence of chariots in his tomb, including a number of war chariots, has been used to support this theory. It is suggested that Tut, despite his youth and health issues, may have ridden a chariot as part of a royal procession or military exercise and suffered a fatal injury as a result of the accident. While no direct evidence of an accident has been found, some believe that the lack of definitive signs of disease or murder points to the possibility that a tragic accident may have taken place. In the years following the discovery of King Tut's tomb, rumors and speculation about the cause of his death were fueled by the widespread belief in the curse of the pharaohs. This curse, which was said to strike down anyone who disturbed the tomb of an ancient Egyptian ruler, was especially popularized after the death of Lord Carnarvon, the British financier of the excavation, shortly after the tomb was opened. Some believe that Tut's death was a consequence of the curse, linking his early demise to the mysterious and supposedly vengeful forces of ancient Egypt. Though this theory is now regarded as superstition and has been thoroughly debunked by modern scholars, it played a significant role in the public's perception of King Tut's death in the years following the discovery of his tomb. Today, modern forensic science and advanced imaging techniques have provided important clues that have helped piece together the puzzle of King Tut's death. CT scans of Tut's mummy, for example, have revealed that he had a broken leg, which may have been a contributing factor to his demise. Some researchers argue that the king's leg injury became infected, leading to sepsis, which could have killed him in a matter of days. Others believe that the leg fracture may have been a sign of an accident, potentially reinforcing the theory of a chariot crash or another physical trauma. Additionally, genetic analysis of Tut's remains has shed light on his health problems, indicating that he may have suffered from malaria and a genetic predisposition to physical deformities, both of which could have contributed to his premature death. Ultimately, the mystery of King Tutankhamun's death is unlikely to be solved with complete certainty. While modern science has provided several plausible explanations, there is still no definitive answer as to why the young pharaoh died so suddenly. Whether it was due to illness, genetic disorders, an accident, or even murder, the unanswered questions about Tut's death only add to the intrigue surrounding his life and legacy. As researchers continue to study his remains and the artifacts found in his tomb, new discoveries may yet shed more light on the true cause of his untimely passing. But until then, the death of King Tut remains one of history's most fascinating and enigmatic mysteries, a puzzle that continues to capture the imagination of historians, archaeologists, and the general public alike. The Curse of the Pharaohs is one of the most enduring legends associated with the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb and has become a key part of the mystique surrounding the young pharaoh. This eerie tale of supernatural retribution for disturbing the ancient resting places of Egypt's rulers has captivated the imagination of people around the world since the tomb's discovery in 1922. Though the curse is widely regarded by scholars as superstition and a product of media sensationalism, it continues to be an integral part of the narrative surrounding King Tut's tomb, serving as a mysterious backdrop to the excavation and the eventual deaths of several individuals connected to the find. The origin of the Curse of the Pharaohs is often traced back to the sudden and unexpected death of Lord Carnarvon, the British aristocrat and financier who funded the excavation of Tutankhamun's tomb. Carnarvon died in April 1923, just a few months after the tomb was opened, following a bite from a mosquito that became infected. His death, along with the timing, occurring shortly after the discovery, set the stage for a cascade of rumors and theories. A sensationalist press played a significant role in exaggerating the connection between his death and the supposed curse, with some reports suggesting that Carnarvon's death was retribution for his part in disturbing the tomb of the ancient king. The legend of the curse itself was said to be a warning to anyone who dared to disturb the sacred tombs of Egypt's rulers. According to the superstition, those who violated the sanctity of a pharaoh's final resting place would be struck down by divine forces, their lives abruptly ending as punishment for their sacrilege. The idea that pharaohs could cast curses upon their tombs to protect their remains was not entirely without precedent in ancient Egypt. While there is no concrete evidence that curses were explicitly written into the tomb inscriptions of ancient Egyptian rulers, it is known that curses were often inscribed on tombs to warn would-be grave robbers of the consequences of disturbing the deceased. These warnings were meant to invoke divine retribution upon any person who dared to violate the tomb. It is believed that these curses, written in hieroglyphics, were intended to protect the deceased and their possessions from theft and desecration. However, the association of these ancient curses with the discovery of King Tut's tomb was largely a product of modern mythology. While it is true that Lord Carnarvon's death fueled the rumors, it was the death of other members of the expedition and the subsequent strange occurrences surrounding the excavation that added layers to the curse narrative. In the years following Carnarvon's death, several other individuals who were involved in the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb died under mysterious or unusual circumstances. Some of these deaths, including those of prominent figures such as George Gould, an American socialite and explorer who had visited the tomb shortly before Carnarvon's death, were seen as further proof of the curse. Gould's death in 1923, also attributed to an illness, was widely speculated to be a result of the curse, although medical explanations were never ruled out. One of the most prominent deaths that fueled the curse narrative was that of Sir Bruce Ingram, a journalist who had been covering the excavation. Ingram's house, shortly after he had visited the tomb, burned down in a mysterious fire, and rumors of supernatural retribution spread quickly. While the fire was eventually ruled as accidental, the coincidence added to the growing body of eerie events linked to those who were involved in the excavation. The sudden deaths, unexplained illnesses, and odd coincidences created an air of superstition and fear, leading some to believe that the curse was real and that those connected to the tomb were being punished by the spirits of the ancient Egyptians. The widespread belief in the curse of the pharaohs was also aided by the mysterious and eerie nature of King Tut's tomb itself. Unlike many of the tombs in the Valley of the Kings, which had been looted by grave robbers over the centuries, Tutankhamun's tomb had remained largely untouched for over 3,000 years. The discovery of this virgin tomb, with its wealth of treasures, was a once-in-a-lifetime archaeological find. The idea that this tomb was somehow protected by a curse seemed plausible to many, especially at a time when Egyptology was in its infancy and knowledge of ancient Egypt was limited. The notion of an ancient curse was something that captured the public's imagination, especially when coupled with the extraordinary circumstances surrounding the tomb's discovery. However, as more deaths and misfortunes connected to the excavation came to light, the curse became increasingly entwined with the discovery of the tomb itself. A common narrative emerged that anyone who had entered the tomb, or had even been associated with the discovery in some way, was doomed to suffer a tragic or untimely death. Some individuals even believed that the curse extended beyond the initial excavation team to others who had visited the tomb years later. For example, after Carnarvon's death, several of his family members, including his half-brother, also died prematurely, further deepening the association between the curse and the discovery of the tomb. These deaths were often surrounded by speculation and fueled the belief in the curse. Yet, there were also many who escaped unscathed, including Howard Carter, the lead archaeologist behind the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. Carter, who spent years carefully excavating and documenting the tomb, lived a relatively long life, dying in 1939 at the age of 64. His survival was often cited by skeptics of the curse, who argued that the curse was nothing more than a product of coincidence, media sensationalism, and psychological projection. After all, death is an inevitable part of life, and many of those involved in the discovery of Tut's tomb lived long lives, while others died from causes that were entirely explicable by medical science. Despite the overwhelming skepticism of historians and archaeologists, the curse of the pharaohs has endured in popular culture, remaining a part of the fascination with Egyptology. The curse has been mentioned in countless books, films, and documentaries, where it continues to be invoked as part of the intrigue surrounding the tomb. This legend has transcended the boundaries of historical fact and has become a vital component of the mythos surrounding ancient Egypt, particularly the discovery of King Tut's tomb. It serves as a reminder of how myths and superstitions can take on a life of their own, evolving into a narrative that, despite its lack of factual basis, continues to captivate and entertain people worldwide. Modern scholars, however, have largely dismissed the curse as a superstition, pointing to the fact that many of those who suffered tragic fates after the tomb's discovery died from easily explainable causes. For example, Lord Carnarvon's death from an infected mosquito bite is a tragic but entirely plausible event, as mosquito-borne illnesses such as malaria were common in Egypt. Additionally, Many of the other deaths linked to the curse were the result of age, illness, or accidents, rather than any supernatural influence. Some researchers argue that the widespread belief in the curse was simply a product of the media's obsession with sensational stories, and that the mysterious deaths were the result of coincidence, not divine retribution. Regardless of its origins, the curse of the pharaohs continues to captivate the public's imagination, serving as a testament to the enduring power of myth and legend. While scholars may dismiss it as superstition, the curse remains a key part of the legacy of King Tutankhamun's tomb, adding an element of mystery and intrigue to one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in history. Whether the curse was real or simply the result of coincidence, its impact on the public's perception of the tomb and its treasures cannot be denied. It continues to fuel speculation, inspire stories, and serve as a reminder of the ancient Egyptians' belief in the supernatural forces that govern their world, a world that, even after thousands of years, still holds secrets waiting to be uncovered. King Tutankhamun, though he was only a minor pharaoh in the grand scope of Egypt's vast history, has become one of the most iconic figures in modern culture. His legacy, far from being confined to the annals of ancient Egypt, transcends time and place, having a profound influence on everything from popular culture to art, fashion, and archaeology. The discovery of his tomb in 1922 and the treasures it contained ignited a global fascination with ancient Egypt that persists to this day. As such, King Tut's legacy is not just one of historical importance, but one that continues to resonate with the modern world in ways that few other historical figures can claim. One of the most immediate and lasting impacts of King Tut's tomb discovery was the wave of Egyptomania that swept the Western world during the early 20th century. The lavish treasures, the mysterious aura surrounding the tomb, and the global media frenzy surrounding the excavation brought Egypt and its ancient culture into the global spotlight. Tutankhamun became a symbol of the wonders of ancient Egypt, and his tomb's contents, particularly the golden burial mask, became one of the most recognized and admired artifacts of the ancient world. Images of the mask, with its serene expression and dazzling gold surface, were plastered on everything from posters to jewelry, making King Tut a household name. This cultural phenomenon helped to shape the way the Western world viewed Egypt, elevating the country's ancient civilization to near-mythical status. Beyond the initial excitement, King Tut's discovery and the subsequent fascination with his tomb set the stage for a renewed interest in ancient Egypt that has continued for over a century. His tomb, with its rich array of treasures, was a perfect snapshot of ancient Egyptian royalty, providing scholars, archaeologists, and enthusiasts with an unprecedented look at the material culture of the pharaohs. For historians and Egyptologists, the discovery was a goldmine of information, offering valuable insights into burial practices, art, religion, and the daily lives of the elite in ancient Egypt. For the general public, however, the allure of King Tut lay not just in the educational value of the discovery, but in its mystery and glamour. The idea of a long-lost tomb filled with riches and treasures, untouched by grave robbers for thousands of years, captivated imaginations worldwide. King Tut's influence on modern culture is not just limited to the time immediately following the discovery of his tomb. Over the decades, his legacy has been maintained and expanded through various media and forms of artistic expression. The 1970s and 1980s saw a resurgence of interest in ancient Egypt, particularly with the opening of major exhibitions of King Tut's treasures in major museums around the world. The most significant of these exhibitions was the Tutankhamun Tour, which began in 1976 and brought his golden treasures to cities across North America and Europe. The tour attracted millions of visitors and reignited public fascination with ancient Egypt, cementing King Tut as a cultural icon. In addition to these exhibitions, King Tut's image has appeared in countless films, television shows, books, and even commercials. From the classic 1932 horror film The Mummy, which took inspiration from the idea of an ancient curse, to modern depictions of Egypt in Hollywood blockbusters, King Tut's tomb and its treasures have had a lasting influence on how Egypt is portrayed in popular culture. Whether through direct references to his life and tomb or more indirect homages, such as in the design of Egyptian-themed products and decor, King Tut's presence in modern culture remains undeniable. He has become a symbol of mystery, wealth, and the allure of the ancient world. Beyond entertainment, King Tut has also left his mark on fashion and design. The dazzling jewelry, intricate patterns, and golden objects found in his tomb have inspired a wide range of fashion designers and artists over the years. The Art Deco movement, which emerged in the 1920s, drew heavily on ancient Egyptian motifs, and Tutankhamun's treasures played a key role in this influence. The angular, geometric patterns of the era, as well as the use of gold and vibrant colors, were inspired by the ancient Egyptian artifacts, especially those found in King Tut's tomb. High fashion collections, jewelry lines, and even makeup products have drawn inspiration from the style and elegance of ancient Egyptian art, and King Tut's tomb remains a major point of reference for designers who seek to evoke the mystique of the ancient world. King Tut's tomb has also influenced the way we think about archaeology and conservation. The tomb's discovery marked a turning point in the history of modern archaeology, highlighting the importance of preserving historical sites and artifacts for future generations. The meticulous work that Howard Carter and his team carried out during the excavation, as well as the ongoing efforts to conserve the treasures found within the tomb, set a standard for archaeological practices. The excavation itself, with its scientific rigor and detailed documentation, was a model for future excavations, and the importance of proper conservation has since become a cornerstone of archaeological work. The tomb's treasures, many of which are now housed in museums around the world, continue to be studied and preserved, ensuring that King Tut's legacy will be protected for future generations. In addition to its impact on archaeology, the discovery of King Tut's tomb also influenced how we view ancient Egypt's historical significance. Prior to the discovery, Egypt's ancient civilization was often overshadowed by other ancient cultures, particularly those of Mesopotamia, Greece, and Rome. The opening of Tutankhamun's tomb revealed the sophistication and richness of Egyptian culture, providing a more complete picture of the pharaohs and their reigns. This has since contributed to the wider understanding of ancient Egyptian history, particularly regarding the importance of the pharaohs as both political leaders and religious figures. Today, the legacy of King Tut is an integral part of the global cultural landscape, influencing not only our understanding of Egypt, but also the way we view ancient civilizations in general. King Tut has also had a lasting impact on the field of Egyptology itself. The discovery of his tomb and its treasures sparked a wave of research into the life and times of ancient Egypt, leading to the establishment of many new institutions, museums, and academic programs dedicated to the study of the ancient world. Tutankhamun's tomb provided a wealth of information about burial practices, art, and religious beliefs, allowing scholars to build upon this knowledge to gain further insights into the broader history of Egypt. As a result, King Tut has become a central figure in the study of ancient Egypt, and his tomb remains one of the most important archaeological sites in the world. King Tutankhamun's legacy is not confined to history books and museums. It lives on in popular culture, art, fashion, and even modern archaeology. The allure of Tut's tomb and the treasures it contained has captivated generations of people, making him one of the most recognizable figures from the ancient world. His legacy continues to shape our understanding of ancient Egypt and has inspired countless people to look deeper into the history of one of the world's greatest civilizations. Whether through exhibitions, films, or academic studies, King Tut's image remains firmly entrenched in modern culture, a symbol of mystery, wealth, and the enduring power of the pharaohs. His tomb, his treasures, and his image will continue to captivate and inspire for generations to come, ensuring that the legacy of the boy king will never be forgotten. Howard Carter, the British archaeologist responsible for the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb, is one of the most iconic figures in the history of Egyptology. His name is synonymous with one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries ever made, Yet his journey to finding the tomb of the boy king was anything but straightforward. Carter's path to uncovering King Tut's tomb was shaped by determination, a profound understanding of ancient Egyptian history, and an intense personal passion for archaeology. It was his tireless work, combined with his deep respect for Egypt's ancient civilization, that ultimately led to the world-changing discovery that continues to captivate audiences today. Carter was born in 1874 in London and grew up with an early fascination for ancient Egypt. His father was an artist, which allowed Carter to develop his drawing skills from a young age, an ability that would later prove invaluable in his archaeological career. After working with several prominent British archaeologists in Egypt and gaining first-hand experience in excavation, Carter became known for his meticulous and dedicated work. Despite his early success, Carter struggled for years to secure funding for his excavations. His persistence in pursuing his goal of unearthing ancient Egyptian tombs was what led him to the Valley of the Kings and, ultimately, to Tutankhamun's tomb. The Valley of the Kings, where the tomb of Tutankhamun would be found, was a site of great historical importance. Over 60 tombs of Egypt's pharaohs and nobility were constructed in this valley, and many had already been discovered by the time Carter arrived in Egypt. However, many tombs, including those of the most famous pharaohs such as Ramses II and Seti I, have been looted over the centuries, leaving behind little to be studied or admired. By the time Carter began his work in the Valley of the Kings in 1907, the area had already been extensively explored, and many believe that there were no more tombs of significance left to uncover. However, Carter refused to accept this idea. He believed that there were still hidden tombs that had been overlooked or undiscovered. His search for these lost tombs would ultimately bring him to one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. Carter's early work in Egypt involved assisting Lord Carnarvon, a wealthy British aristocrat and patron of archaeological excavations, with various excavation projects in the Valley of the Kings. Carnarvon was an enthusiastic supporter of Egyptology and had funded several excavations in the region, but it was Carter's dedication and expertise that ultimately led him to discover something extraordinary. In 1914, Carter began focusing his efforts on a small, unexplored area of the valley. He had heard rumors and indications that an unknown tomb might be buried beneath the debris of the more prominent tombs, and he was determined to find it. It was an ambitious undertaking, as many other archaeologists had already concluded that all the significant tombs had been discovered. The discovery itself came after years of painstaking effort. Carter and his team had spent several seasons meticulously clearing the valley floor and digging through layers of debris. The excavation was slow and tedious, but Carter's determination never waned. His persistence paid off in November of 1922, when, after uncovering a set of stone steps buried in the earth, Carter finally realized that he had found something remarkable. The steps led down to an unopened tomb, and Carter had just discovered what would turn out to be the tomb of Tutankhamun. The significance of this discovery was almost beyond comprehension. It was a tomb that had remained undisturbed for over 3,000 years, a true rarity in the history of archaeology. When Carter first entered the tomb, he could scarcely believe what he was seeing. The burial chamber was filled with incredible treasures, including golden statues, precious jewelry, chests, and intricate carvings. The most famous of all these treasures was the burial mask of King Tut, made of pure gold and encrusted with semi-precious stones. This mask, now one of the most iconic symbols of ancient Egypt, was a stunning representation of Tut's divine status and the wealth of his burial. The treasures in the tomb were unlike anything Carter had ever seen. It was an unprecedented find, and the scale of the discovery immediately made headlines around the world. Despite the initial excitement of the discovery, Carter's work was far from over. The excavation of the tomb itself was a monumental task, and Carter faced a number of challenges in the months that followed. The tomb had been sealed for thousands of years, and the treasures within were in fragile condition. Carter and his team carefully cataloged and removed each object, ensuring that the artifacts were properly preserved. The process took years, and the world watched in awe as more and more incredible treasures were uncovered from the tomb. These artifacts provided invaluable insights into ancient Egyptian burial practices, art, and religious beliefs, further enhancing Carter's status as one of the greatest archaeologists of his time. However, Carter's relationship with the press and the public was not always harmonious. While the discovery of the tomb brought him worldwide fame, it also led to tensions with Lord Carnarvon, his financial backer. The two men had initially agreed to a partnership in which Carter would have exclusive rights to the tomb's excavation, but the situation soon became complicated. As the excavation progressed, both men sought to claim credit for the find, leading to disagreements and disputes. Additionally, the media attention surrounding the discovery was overwhelming, and Carter often found himself at odds with journalists eager to sensationalize the findings. In particular, the mysterious deaths of several individuals associated with the excavation, including Lord Carnarvon, would lead to the development of the so-called Curse of the Pharaohs, a narrative that captivated the public but also contributed to the myth and drama surrounding Carter's discovery. Despite the controversies and challenges, Carter remained focused on his mission. His dedication to preserving the integrity of the tomb and the treasures within it was unwavering. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb became an unparalleled moment in the field of archaeology, and Carter's contributions to Egyptology are still celebrated today. His name is forever associated with the Boy King, and his work has had a lasting impact on how archaeologists approach the study of ancient Egypt. The wealth of knowledge that Carter uncovered has allowed scholars to piece together a more complete picture of life in ancient Egypt, providing valuable insights into the culture, religion, and society of one of the world's most powerful civilizations. Howard Carter's legacy, however, extends beyond his discovery of King Tut's tomb. His work set the stage for subsequent archaeological investigations in Egypt and has shaped the field of Egyptology as we know it today. Carter's meticulous documentation of the tomb's contents, his careful preservation of the artifacts, and his commitment to scientific rigor all contributed to the development of modern archaeological methods. His discoveries not only shed light on the reign of Tutankhamun, but also deepened our understanding of ancient Egyptian culture and its complex burial rituals. Through Carter's work, the world gained access to an extraordinary treasure trove of ancient artifacts, many of which continue to be studied and admired in museums around the globe. Ultimately, Carter's discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb marked a turning point in the study of ancient Egypt. His work brought ancient Egyptian civilization into the global spotlight, inspiring countless individuals to explore its mysteries. It was a testament to the power of perseverance and the profound impact of one determined individual who dedicated his life to uncovering the past. Carter's legacy lives on, not only in the treasures he uncovered, but in the enduring fascination with King Tut and ancient Egypt that continues to captivate us today. The discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 marked one of the most significant moments in the history of archaeology, an event that would change the way the world viewed ancient Egypt forever. For over 3,000 years, the tomb of the Boy King had remained undisturbed, hidden beneath layers of debris in the Valley of the Kings. When it was uncovered by Howard Carter and his team, the world was given an unprecedented glimpse into the wealth, culture, and burial practices of ancient Egypt's royal elite. The impact of the discovery, both immediate and long-lasting, reshaped not only the field of archaeology, but also the broader understanding of ancient Egyptian civilization, influencing generations of scholars, researchers, and enthusiasts. At the time of its discovery, Egyptology was a field still in its infancy, and the idea of uncovering a nearly intact royal tomb filled with exquisite treasures was nothing short of extraordinary. Carter's find provided a treasure trove of artifacts, many of which had never been seen by modern eyes. The tomb was a snapshot of royal life during the 18th dynasty, and the artifacts inside were unparalleled in their richness and historical significance. From golden statues and intricately decorated chests to precious jewelry and everyday objects, the tomb of King Tut offered an unprecedented window into the life of the pharaohs. For archaeologists, the discovery was a rare opportunity to study an untouched tomb in its original context, providing invaluable information about ancient Egyptian culture, art, and religious beliefs. The excavation of King Tut's tomb marked a departure from earlier archaeological practices, which were often focused on the treasure hunt aspect of tomb exploration. Previous tomb discoveries, such as that of the tomb of Ramses II, had been looted centuries before, and many artifacts had been removed or destroyed. Carter's work, however, set a new standard for archaeological methodology, emphasizing meticulous documentation and careful preservation. Carter and his team used precise methods to catalog and photograph every object they uncovered, ensuring that no artifact was overlooked or misrepresented. This careful documentation became a model for future excavations, and the standards Carter set have been applied in archaeological digs worldwide. In addition to his meticulous approach to excavation, Carter's discovery also set a new precedent for the preservation of artifacts. Many of the objects found in Tutankhamun's tomb were incredibly delicate and required careful conservation to prevent them from deteriorating. Carter worked closely with experts in preservation and conservation to ensure that the treasures from the tomb were preserved for future generations. This focus on conservation was groundbreaking at the time and led to the development of modern techniques in artifact preservation. The tomb's treasures, many of which were made of precious metals, wood, and textiles, would have deteriorated over time if not for Carter's efforts. Today, these objects are displayed in museums and continue to be studied by scholars, providing an invaluable glimpse into ancient Egypt's royal life. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb also had profound implications for the study of ancient Egyptian religion and burial practices. Prior to the tomb's discovery, much of what was known about Egyptian burial rituals came from texts, inscriptions, and the study of other tombs. However, the wealth of artifacts found in King Tut's tomb offered new insights into the spiritual and ritualistic aspects of royal burials. The tomb contained a variety of religious objects, including statues of gods, ceremonial items, and amulets that were meant to protect the pharaoh in the afterlife. The discovery allowed scholars to study these items in detail and to gain a deeper understanding of the religious beliefs that guided Egyptian funerary practices. The tomb's layout and its contents also revealed much about the social and political organization of ancient Egypt. The presence of numerous items that had been carefully chosen to accompany the pharaoh into the afterlife indicated the importance of material wealth in ancient Egyptian society. Many of the objects were symbolic of power and divine favor, such as the gold mask and the throne that depicted Tutankhamun as both a ruler and a god. These items not only served to elevate the status of the pharaoh in the afterlife, but also provided evidence of the elaborate rituals and ceremonies that were part of royal life. The discovery allowed scholars to gain new insights into the role of the pharaoh as both a political leader and a divine figure, a key element of ancient Egyptian belief. In terms of archaeological methodology, the discovery also had a lasting impact on the way tombs were excavated and studied. Before the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, many archaeological digs were haphazard, with little regard for the preservation of the site or the objects within it. Carter's careful excavation of the tomb was a turning point in the field, setting a new standard for the careful and systematic approach to archaeological research. His use of photography, detailed drawings, and precise measurements during the excavation helped create an extensive record of the tomb and its contents. The thoroughness with which Carter documented the tomb's discovery allowed future archaeologists to study the objects in the context in which they were found, rather than simply as isolated artifacts. The impact of the discovery also extended beyond the academic world, capturing the public's imagination in ways that few archaeological finds had before. The world was captivated by the story of the tomb's discovery, and media outlets worldwide reported on the excavation and its findings. The treasures from the tomb became symbols of Egypt's grandeur and mystery, and the images of Tutankhamun's golden mask, in particular, became iconic. For many, the discovery represented not just an academic triumph, but a moment of wonder and fascination, offering a tangible connection to a civilization that had long been lost to history. In the years that followed the discovery, the impact on archaeology became even more evident. The methods and approaches that Carter pioneered in the excavation of Tutankhamun's tomb influenced generations of archaeologists. His attention to detail, his respect for the artifacts, and his careful planning became a model for future digs. Moreover, the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb inspired a renewed interest in Egyptology and archaeological research in Egypt and the surrounding regions. The tomb's treasures continued to be studied and analyzed, providing scholars with a wealth of information about ancient Egyptian culture and the lives of the pharaohs. Furthermore, the discovery of the tomb had a lasting impact on the study of ancient Egyptian art. The objects found in the tomb, including intricate jewelry, furniture, and statues, provided scholars with a rich collection of material that helped to define the artistic styles of the 18th dynasty. Many of the pieces from the tomb displayed a level of craftsmanship that was previously unknown, offering new insights into the technological capabilities of ancient Egyptian artisans. The tomb's artifacts also revealed the importance of symbolism in Egyptian art, with many of the objects reflecting the spiritual and religious beliefs that were central to Egyptian culture. These discoveries continue to influence the study of ancient Egyptian art, as scholars seek to understand the techniques, materials, and symbolism behind the objects that were used in royal burials. The discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb also changed the way that archaeological sites were protected and preserved. Prior to the discovery, many tombs in Egypt had been looted or vandalized, and there were few efforts to protect these sites from further damage. The massive global interest in Tutankhamun's tomb led to increased efforts to preserve Egypt's archaeological heritage. In the years following the discovery, the Egyptian government and international organizations worked together to establish measures to protect ancient sites and prevent looting. These efforts laid the foundation for the modern preservation and conservation practices that are now in place in Egypt and other archaeological sites around the world. In conclusion, the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 was a defining moment in the field of archaeology. It revolutionized the study of ancient Egypt, providing a wealth of new information about the pharaohs, their burial practices, and their culture. The careful excavation, documentation, and preservation of the tomb's treasures set new standards for archaeological methodology, and the impact of the discovery has been felt across multiple disciplines, from art history to religious studies. The tomb of Tutankhamun continues to be a source of fascination and inspiration, and its discovery remains one of the greatest achievements in the history of archaeology. The death of King Tutankhamun, the young pharaoh who ascended to the throne at a tender age and ruled Egypt for just a decade, remains one of the most perplexing and enduring mysteries in both the fields of Egyptology and historical inquiry. Despite the vast array of knowledge and artifacts unearthed from his tomb, the exact cause of his death has been a subject of intense speculation and debate among scholars, researchers, and historians. His premature demise at around the age of 18 or 19, while still in the prime of life, has given rise to numerous theories, some medical, some supernatural, each attempting to unravel the circumstances surrounding the young king's untimely death. The most widely accepted version of events, based on ancient texts and historical records, suggests that King Tut's death was sudden and unexpected. There is little documentation regarding his health in the years leading up to his death, but his passing was so abrupt that it immediately raised questions. Tutankhamun was buried with extraordinary opulence, as seen in the treasures found in his tomb, but there are no signs of the usual signs of disease or injury in the tomb itself that might have suggested a lingering illness or battle wounds. At first, it appeared that the pharaoh had been in good health, and many assumed his death to be caused by some form of accident or natural cause. However, further analysis of Tutankhamun's mummified remains would reveal clues that pointed to a more complex and mysterious cause. In 1968, after decades of speculation, Dr. Ronald Harrison, an expert in ancient Egyptian mummification, conducted a detailed study of King Tut's mummy and his remains. His examination revealed that Tutankhamun's body showed signs of an unusual bone condition known as necrosis, which causes the death of bone tissue due to reduced blood supply. Necrosis could indicate that the young king had suffered from an infection or disease that had seriously compromised his health in the final months of his life. This discovery led to the theory that King Tut may have died from complications related to a medical condition, but the specifics of this illness remained unclear. However, other signs on the mummy suggested that his health may have been far more fragile than previously thought. Perhaps the most shocking revelation came with the discovery of a fracture in Tutankhamun's leg. An X-ray of the mummy in 1968 showed that he had broken his left femur, the largest bone in the body, just before his death. The fracture appeared to be recent, with no signs of healing, indicating that it occurred very shortly before Tut's demise. Some researchers initially believed that the fracture might have been the cause of his death, either from infection or from complications related to the trauma. In ancient Egypt, broken bones often led to infections, as the surgical techniques of the time were rudimentary at best, and antiseptic measures were non-existent. The idea that King Tut could have succumbed to an infection from a simple accident became a leading theory among some scholars. However, the theory that Tutankhamun's death was the result of an infection from a broken leg fracture was complicated by the lack of evidence of any other injuries or signs of external trauma. This led to the possibility of alternative theories. One of the most prominent alternative explanations is that Tutankhamun was poisoned. The idea of royal poisoning in ancient Egypt is not entirely without precedent, and in fact, there are several well-documented cases of pharaohs who were believed to have been victims of assassination or poisoning by rivals. Some scholars believe that Tutankhamun's early death may have been the result of a political conspiracy orchestrated by his advisors or family members. Further supporting the theory of poisoning is the discovery of Tutankhamun's high levels of malaria parasites in his bloodstream. In the early 2000s, DNA tests conducted on Tut's mummified remains confirmed that he had been infected with Plasmodium falciparum, the parasite responsible for malaria, a disease that was common in ancient Egypt and other parts of the world at the time. Some researchers speculated that the malaria infection might have weakened Tutankhamun's immune system, making him more vulnerable to other infections, including those related to his leg fracture. This, in turn, could have led to his death. However, there are still inconsistencies with this theory, as it remains unclear whether the malaria infection was directly related to his demise or whether it was a post-mortem finding, meaning that the parasite could have been present in his body after death rather than causing the cause of death itself. Another theory that has gained some traction in recent years is the possibility that Tutankhamun was suffering from a genetic disorder. Genetic studies, which have become more advanced in recent decades, have provided some fascinating insights into Tut's health. DNA analysis of Tutankhamun's remains revealed that he had several genetic conditions that could have contributed to his untimely death. One of the most important findings was that King Tut suffered from a disorder known as Kolar disease 2, which affects the bones and leads to degeneration of the bones in the feet. The presence of this disorder would have made it painful for the young pharaoh to walk and could have compromised his overall health. This condition, combined with his other health issues, could have significantly weakened Tut's body, leaving him more susceptible to infection and other complications. In addition to Kolar disease 2, the genetic analysis also suggested that Tutankhamun had a form of clubfoot, which would have made him unable to walk without assistance. The presence of this congenital defect, combined with his frailty and the stress of ruling a powerful civilization at such a young age, may have contributed to his health problems. It is believed that the combination of these genetic issues, along with his severe leg fracture and malaria infection, created a perfect storm of conditions that ultimately led to his early death. This theory suggests that King Tut's death was not the result of any one factor, but rather the culmination of multiple underlying health conditions. Some researchers have even suggested that King Tut's death may have been caused by a simple accident. Given his young age and the inherent risks associated with the lifestyle of a young king, it is possible that Tutankhamun's death was the result of a tragic and unforeseen mishap. The broken leg found on his mummified remains may indicate that he fell from a great height, perhaps while riding in a chariot, a common activity for young pharaohs. While there is no direct evidence of such an accident, the possibility of a fatal fall cannot be ruled out entirely. Another possibility, although less widely accepted, is the idea that King Tut's death may have been influenced by the political turmoil of his time. Tutankhamun's reign was short, and he ascended to the throne at a time when Egypt was undergoing significant social and religious upheaval. His father, Akhenaten, had introduced a revolutionary form of monotheism, worshipping the sun disk Aten over the traditional Egyptian pantheon of gods. After Akhenaten's death, there was a return to the old religious order, and Tutankhamun, as a child, may have been a political pawn in a struggle for power. Some theorize that his early death might have been orchestrated by those who sought to control Egypt's future or to prevent the young king from carrying out reforms of his own. While there is no concrete evidence to support this theory, it remains a fascinating possibility. Ultimately, the true cause of King Tutankhamun's death may never be known with certainty. The combination of his health issues, his frailty, and the possibility of an accident or assassination has led to a wide array of theories, each with its own set of supporting evidence and contradictions. The mystery of Tutankhamun's death continues to captivate the imagination of researchers and the public alike, offering tantalizing glimpses into the life of one of Egypt's most famous, if enigmatic, pharaohs. As with so much of ancient Egypt, the full truth remains just beyond our reach, a puzzle that continues to beckon scholars to explore its depths.